بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين أما بعد. Before we go into the ayat of Surah Takwir, the question for you is what is the word of the day? Rasul, mashallah. Rasul, which means messenger. Alhamdulillah. Inshallah, what we'll do first is we will recite these ayat together. I will recite the ayah and then I'll ask you to repeat after it, inshallah ta'ala. And then we'll move on to the next ayah. The next ayah is going to be ayah number 16. This is the 15th day of Ramadan, and we are on ayah number 16. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إذا الشمس كورت وإذا النجوم انكدرت وإذا الجبال سيرت وإذا العشار عطلت وإذا الوحوش حشرت وإذا البحار سجرت وإذا النفوس زوجت وإذا الموءودة سئلت بأي ذنب قتلت وإذا الصحف نشرت وإذا السماء كشطت وإذا الجحيم سعرت وإذا الجنة أزلفت علمت نفس ما أحضرت فلا أقسم بالخنس الجوار الكنس. Let's repeat this last ayah 3 times, inshallah. الجوار الكنس الجوار الكنس الجوار الكنس. MashaAllah. We were speaking about these ayat after the 12 signs of the day of resurrection, or the 12 events that will happen at the time of the resurrection. Allah Azza wa Jalla said, "Alimat nafsum ma ahdarat." Every single soul will know what it has put forth. And then Allah Azza wa Jalla, He started a new series, and the next series is a series of swears. He swears by different objects. And we mentioned the first swear. Allah Azza wa Jalla says, فَلَا أُقْسِمُ بِالْخُنَّسِ. I do not even swear by al-khunnas. Al-khunnas, we said, that is something that it escapes your eyes. It turns away and it escapes your eyes. The next ayah is the same. It's another description of al-khunnas. And Allah becomes a little bit more explicit. The ayat are more explicit. Allah Azza wa Jal makes it more explicit in the next ayah. So He says, al-jawari al-kunnas. Al-jawari al-kunnas. 2 words here. Al-jawari. These, what are jawari? In the Quran, and usually in Lughatul Quran, when Allah Azza wa Jal uses this term, al-jawari, He is speaking about ships on the sea. He's speaking about ships on the sea. وَمِنْ آيَاتِهِ الْجَوَارِ فِي الْبَحْرِ. And from His ayat is al-jawar. Al-jawar, then He explains, fil bahr. They're on the earth, they're on the seas, in the sea. Al-jawari fil bahri kal a'lam. Then he makes a similitude in this ayah. He says, kal a'lam. They are like, signposts. They are like, I want you to think about an aerial vision of the international waters. And you look at all the trade routes and all of the ships that are moving around. They look like, signposts all around. And they seem to not travel, but they're traveling. They're moving on the water. They're not like going up and down, and rather they're just sailing on the waters smoothly. So this is what a ships look like. But here in this ayah, we're not speaking about ships. We're speaking another object that looks like ships as they travel, and they're traveling calmly, smoothly, but they're not ships. What is Allah speaking about here? He's talking about the planetary, the stars and the planets. Right? So when you look at the planets in the sky, it's like you're looking at the aerial vision of the seas. Right? Allah Azza wa Jal, He's giving us this imagery. And He says, Al-jawari al-kunnas. Al-kunnas means that it goes back to its destination. And this is really profound. And remember yesterday we said we're speaking most likely not just about stars, but mostly about planets. We're speaking about planets. And why planets and not stars? Because when these planets, you see these, they call them the constellations. These constellations, the Big Dipper. You can see you put a few stars together and you call that a constellation. You put a few stars together and you call that a constellation. So they have different signs and different constellations. Those are not. They stay stagnant in your sky. They're not like moving. They're moving around in the night sky, but they're not moving within their own orbits. It doesn't seem to us from the human perspective. But there are other objects in the sky that are clearly moving in their orbits. And if you observe them night over night, you will find that they have a very specific path. And those are the planets. So Allah Azza wa Jal, He's calling our attention to these planets. By the way, the long time ago, they thought that everything revolved around the earth. Muslims knew that it does not revolve around the earth. They figured this out. And they were actually the first people to figure this out. It was not Copernicus and it was not Galileo. That was stolen work. That was completely 100% stolen from the Muslims. We figured it out that these things are not revolving around the earth. They're actually revolving around the sun. And the Muslims, they looked at and they observed the night sky. And they noticed that if you notice these planets, some of the planets are actually closer to the sun and other planets are further away from the sun. The planets that are closer to the sun, they have a very specific type of orbit. They always appear in the sky, and you can see them moving around in a particular orbit because they're going around the sun. And those are two planets, namely Mercury and Venus. And then you have planets that are beyond the Earth. That is Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, and Neptune, and maybe Pluto. There's ikhtilaf if that's a planet or not. Now, these planets, if you see the way they move, they move forward, and then they go backward. And then they move forward even more, and they take a step back. And then they move forward, and then they take a step back. This is if you observe them for a long enough period of time. They call that in astronomy, they call that retrograde motion. Retrograde motion, because it moves forward and then it takes a step back. This was observable to Muslims, and they knew this. This is what they mean by al-kunnas. Some of the ulama, when they look at this, they say this is the retrograde motion that is happening. It's as if they're moving like ships in the sea, but then it's as if they move back. Kunnas. They're going back to a destination, and then they move forward again, and they move back. This causes, this actually spurs, what is this? What is Allah Azza wa Jalla speaking about? So you start observing the night sky, and you start coming to realizations, and you start making some observations, and then you note them down. And some of the earliest scholars like Al-Biruni and other scholars from the past, they noted all of this, and this is preserved in their works. So this ayah, Wallahu ta'ala alam, it seems as if it is speaking about the planetary stars, or planetary planets themselves. And fun fact for you today is that they say, I have not observed this. Alhamdulillah, we were here in the masjid. I didn't look at the sky this morning. But they say that it is right now, between the end of February and the beginning of March, which is right now, the planets of Mercury, Venus, Jupiter, Saturn, and I believe Uranus and Neptune, all 5, 6 of these, are in one line. And this is a very, very rare occurrence. It doesn't happen, like usually. This happens very rare. So I'll be very interested in seeing this, but I don't think, we'll be pretty busy with, Qiyamul Layl and whatnot. But this is something to observe. This is something to look at, and this is from the qudra of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We're witnessing the qudra of Allah azza wa jal here, that all of them are in a line, and you can observe each one. It'll be, if there's an astronomer here, or somebody who has a background in astronomy, it will be very, good for them to point this out to us, inshallah ta'ala. I don't have the background. I just took 2 courses in astronomy in college and, called it quits after that, after they started going into physics. So may Allah Azza wa Jal give us more knowledge, and may Allah Azza wa Jal allow us to benefit from achieving this knowledge and making it, allowing it to increase our iman in Allah Azza wa Jal. And that's the whole point of learning these sciences, is that you learn them not just for, monetary sake, but you learn them ultimately to get closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They increase your iman. We ask Allah Azza wa Jal that He guide us with the Quran, that He make the Quran our guide. We ask Allah Azza wa Jal that He benefit us with the Quran, allow us to recite the Quran day and night. Ameen ya Rabbil Alameen. اللهم لك الحمد كله ولك الشكر كله بيدك الخير كله وإليك يرجع الأمر كله اللهم لا مانع لما أعطيت ولا معطي لما منعت ولا ينفع ذا الجد منك الجد اللهم اغفر للمسلمين والمسلمات والمؤمنين والمؤمنات الأحياء منهم والأموات إنك سميع قريب مجيب الدعوات اللهم اشف مرضانا ومرضى المسلمين اللهم ارحم موتانا وموتى المسلمين اللهم انصر المسلمين المستضعفين في كل مكان يا أرحم الراحمين اللهم أحسن عاقبتنا في الأمور كلها وأجرنا من خزي الدنيا وعذاب الآخرة اللهم احفظ بلاد المسلمين اللهم ارحم أمة محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم يا أرحم الراحمين اللهم تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم وتب علينا إنك أنت التواب الرحيم وآخر دعوانا أن الحمد لله رب العالمين.